Hi, this is Terry Bach, and welcome to the It's My Time Now mini summit. In this summit, what we're going to do is explore how to maintain that hope during this pandemic. I've talked to a lot of people, and I know that we're all just really, really tired from the constraints that we've been under for the past couple of years. So we want to follow the rules, we want to be safe, but what happens to our dreams? What have we done with them? Is there hope that we're ever going to get back to this life that we thought we were working toward? So I've invited several experts to come on here and share their experiences with their clients, with themselves, and on this topic of how to keep hope alive during these times. So today I've invited Jen Vertanen as our expert. And Jen is a coach and a mentor for restless women in their 40s, 50s, and beyond who are ready to finally put themselves first for a selfish, which is her framework, her signature framework, minute, and live their second half even better than their first. Jen's also the host of Restless Woman podcast, coming to ears everywhere. I like that. Using her signature candor, humor, and love of looking at life in all its messy glory, Jen wants the world to know that it's never too late and you're never too old, but you do kind of have to get going. So it's time to shake things up because the rest of your life is literally waiting for you right this very minute. It's your time. And I'm going to add now. It's your time now. Okay, so welcome, Jen.
Hi, Terry. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to have you. So, what makes the midlife woman so restless?
I love that. We started with that question.
Let's get right into it.
There's so much there. Midlife women, especially Gen Xers, we were raised on this being told that we could have it all, right? We could have the career, the family, the friends, the travel, the everything. Yes. We were raised on this dream, this concept of having it all. So we've been trying to do all of that ever since. And oftentimes not listening to our desires, but what we think, what we get from society, our parents, our family of origin, what have you, all of these inputs that came to us in those formative years.
Right. Yeah.
And so this restlessness is you reach this point in your life, right, where your kids are getting older, your parents are getting older, or even have passed on like mine have. Yeah. And it's kind of this question of, well, what's next? Like, is this all there ever is? I don't think so, but what's next?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. That's different. I'm a boomer.
Okay.
So we were more raised, not that we could have it all, but that we, there were certain rules we had to follow.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we followed all these rules and it's the same ending. It's like, okay, now what?
Right.
What's next? Is it finally my time now?
Yeah. Well, and I love if you look at like Golden Girls, they were in their mid 50s and now you have the new Sex and the City reboot and those women are in their 50s and the images of what we considered a woman in her 50s, 60s, 70s has changed over the years. I think for the better.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Much more freedom. But with that freedom, it's like, okay, but which one's right for me or what do I really want to do? So brings up a lot more questions too. So why do you think there's hope in all of that restlessness?
Oh yes, there's lots of hope. There's lots of drama. There's lots of angst, right? And so we can, what I like to think of is what do we want to focus on? We can focus on the angst. We can focus on our aging body. We can focus on all that. I like to focus on what is going to make 80-year-old Jen, 80-year-old me as delightful, as happy as she can possibly be. So when I think of the hope for the restless woman, that's what I'm thinking about is who am I iterating into? What experiences are still out there for me? For example, my mom, she retired as a postmaster and became a pastor in her 60s. And
Wow.
then she retired to Ecuador, of all places, having never been there.
Wow.
So we have all of these opportunities there for us
Mhm.
if we can kind of get out of our own way and go
Exactly.
closer to our dreams.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I noticed, I noticed on your website, you really focus on images of older women,
Mhm.
flipping us off, no less. And
My 80-year-old self is very feisty, so I tend to be drawn to the feisty older woman.
Yes. So how does that older woman apply to you, your life, basically, and your coaching?
Yeah, I love that question. Again, it's a lot of my decision making, or how can I describe it? I stumbled upon what helps me make the best decisions for myself in the moment,
Mhm.
and it's really tapping into that 80-year-old self, that inner wisdom,
Yes.
that wisest self, that woman who has been through everything and persevered. And my vision for her, which is still happy and full of life and vim and vigor. And, sure, her body is aging, but her mind is still as sharp as it can
Mhm.
be. She's
That's
still wanting to learn, right? She still wants to get down on the floor with her grandchildren if she has them. And so it's
mhm.
this, I don't want to give up. And so that's the image of this super strong, beautiful, gorgeous older woman, and in our society, we're afraid of aging. Now there's lots
Yes.
of movements, the pro-aging movement, that's wonderful, but it's in its infancy, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I want to be showing imagery that is this beautiful, wise older woman that I'm turning into. And what I
I
do is I
love that.
backtrack that into
Mhm.
who am I today and how do I move myself closer to that future
Yes,
vision of myself, whether
that's
it's me at
great.
60, me at 70, me at 80, or me tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, mine is also an older woman. I don't have her on my website yet,
Mhm.
but my thing is imagine yourself 80 or whatever towards the end of your life. So it might be
Mhm.
90,
Yep.
100. Um, and what would you, looking back over your life, what would you have regretted not doing?
Yes.
Those are the things you want to be doing now. So you don't
Yeah.
have this life of regrets at the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my backstory, and we won't go into all of it because I don't think we have time for it, but for most of my adult life, I was very, very lonely. At
Mhm.
45 years old, I had a couple of things happen that made me get into my healing journey.
Okay.
And it just brought me to this place where I was on a trajectory to turn into kind of this bitter old woman, this very unhappy,
Mm,
very resentful woman. And that is not who I wanted to be. I'm like, this
right.
is not how my story ends. That helped guide me into what do I change? How do I
Yes.
focus my efforts with the time that I have left on this earth?
Right. Beautiful. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. We mentioned your selfish framework. So can you
Yeah.
talk more about that?
It is very lovingly tongue in cheek.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to take the word back. I had a difficult childhood. I had a very difficult relationship with my mother.
Mm.
And from as early as I could remember, I heard so often how selfish I was. Jenny, you're so selfish for acting this way. You're so selfish for doing that. And it just, did I
Mm.
do things that were sometimes selfish? Absolutely,
Of
because I'm a
course.
human being,
Yeah.
right?
And a kid.
And a kid.
Yeah.
But as a parent myself to three children, I could not imagine looking at my children and over saying, you're so selfish, right?
Right.
So that's one component of it, of taking that word back. The second component
Okay.
is, self-care has this notion of being selfish. And to that, I say that's bogus, right?
Mm-hmm.
The better we're able to get our needs met, the better we're able to meet others' needs. It's just, that's the simple fact.
Right.
The
Right.
old adage of put your own oxygen mask on first. We
Right.
all know it, but then we
Yeah.
hear these inputs of, oh, that's selfish to take time. And I'm here to say it's not. There's a
Exactly.
balance, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I was really reframing that term selfish because we need to
exactly.
be, most women need to be more selfish.
Absolutely. We've
Yeah.
gotten, going back to where we started, the restless midlife woman. Like we're
Yes.
that for a reason. And it's because we've been doing, giving to all things to all people and not to
Yeah.
ourselves. So we reached this
Exactly.
juncture where we realize, I kind of created this for myself. What do I do now?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how do you personally find hope
Yeah.
during these difficult times?
Yeah. I like to remember, and this comes from my coaching background and my own journey, is that what our brains, the inputs we feed into our brains is where our brains will focus, and our brains will find
Mm-hmm.
evidence. It's confirmation bias.
Absolutely. Yep.
There's all sorts of research out there that proves that's what's happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so while I allow myself to feel the emotions of sadness and anger and grief at what the pandemic has
Changed.
changed in our lives,
Right.
right? I choose more to focus on and what can I look forward to? There's a lot of time between 51, almost 52-year-old Jen and 80-year-old Jen. And I
Right.
think of what are the things that, again, are yet to experience in my life. I have to believe that there is hope or light at the end of this tunnel, if you will. There is hope. We may have a new normal. We're still figuring
Mm-hmm.
that out. But look at the
Exactly.
resilience of people, the perseverance of people. And so
Mm-hmm.
I check in with myself daily of where is my mind going to? Is it going to the hopeless or is it going to the hope? And then doing the internal shift. What do I need to hear? What do I need to do that day to move
Mm-hmm.
myself further away from the hopeless and further towards the hope?
Wonderful. I'd like
Yeah.
to hear more about how you work with clients working with
Yeah.
their 80-year-old self.
Ooh.
I want
I
to hear
love that
some
question.
good stories.
Yeah,
Stories.
yeah. So that's the first S in selfish is start with desire.
Mm-hmm.
So again, when I started kind of my healing at 45, I did feel like at a very hopeless
Sure.
point in my life, right? And so
Yeah.
I really looked at who do I want to be? And then I reverse engineered. So if I want to be vibrant and alive and connected and joyful and happy and resilient, how do I reverse engineer that into where I'm at today? Right. And by
Exactly.
reverse engineer, I mean, where are those gaps and how do I
Mm-hmm.
start filling those gaps? Right. And so that's what I do with clients is we start with desire, whether it's, 80-year-old self might be just too far out there for them to think about.
Depending.
How about,
Yeah.
yeah, depending.
Yeah.
How about 6 months from now? Like, who do you
Right.
want that person to be, right? What are you? And so peeling back the layers of what they desire in their life, right? Whether it's a
Mm-hmm.
change in environment, learning a new skill, a desire to be more engaged with your grandchildren, right? So finding out what those gaps are. And then I'm a software development manager by trade. And so I love to move from strategy to action. So
Okay.
I do that quickly with my clients is, let's kind of gather this data about our past and our present and who we want to be our future. And then let's start plugging the gaps and taking those teeny tiny actions. What is the smallest action that will move you forward? Right? We tend to think in terms of I have to do all these big things. And I'm here to say we don't. Momentum
Right.
comes from taking action, taking intentional, inspired action. That's how we build momentum. That's how we iterate into who we want to be.
So, do you have any examples of somebody? I know I'm putting you on the spot
That's
here,
okay.
but do you have a client in particular where it was, so you could kind of show us how you work and what you do? Like, what are those little steps?
Yeah, yeah. So I had a client, a dear woman named Karen, who she was a CEO of her business, boss of her business, but she didn't feel like she was a CEO. She felt like she was
Mm,
always down in the trenches, overwhelming herself with all the details. And she really wanted to bring it up into, I want to be this powerful CEO of my business.
okay.
So we started with, okay, that's great to say. Tell me what that actually looks like, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
want the nitty gritty details. When you say I'm the
Sure.
CEO, what does that actually mean? What does your day look like when you're being the CEO? And then
Okay.
we almost created a persona of her, of like Karen is CEO. Like imagine that energy that you want to step into as the CEO of your business. What does that look like? Right. And then the action steps would be, let's practice that. And so
what were, back up a little bit,
yeah.
what were those steps, or what was that vision for her? Do you
Yeah.
remember?
So, I mean, she kind of put on this Wonder Woman feeling,
Okay.
right? Almost invincibility.
Right.
You know, they talk about the doing your power pose. And so it was
Mhm.
having her feel into like, how do you stand? How are you feeling inside when you're in that energy that you want to be in? She said, I felt powerful. I feel in control. I feel calm. I feel focused. I feel,
Wow.
you know, when it comes to working with her employees, I feel fair, but I feel like I set boundaries,
Mhm.
right? And so
Yeah,
naming the exact feelings she wanted to feel so that
exactly.
she could then practice them.
Mhm.
She was really struggling with a certain employee, and we talked about boundaries and expectations. And come to find out, as we were, you know, my job was to ask questions. And it was, she hadn't set clear expectations with the employee. And so
Okay.
now Karen was disappointed, and the employee felt down because she knew she wasn't meeting expectations, but didn't know what those were. Right.
Right.
And so it was, what does Karen CEO, how does she set expectations with her employees?
Okay.
Right. And then she started practicing that. And all of a sudden that relationship became better. And that gave
Good.
Karen
Yeah.
the evidence of, oh, when I'm in this energy of being the CEO I want, this is just what I do. Is I set clear
You're right.
expectations and boundaries with my employees.
And that in turn then also helps her feel more empowered and clear
Absolutely.
and all of those
Absolutely.
things.
It's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
circles back to
Exactly.
how does
Yeah.
she feel? So when she's doing her job as CEO, she's feeling the way she wants to feel. She's feeling the way she desired to feel when we first started working together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then from there to her 80-year-old self,
Mm-hmm.
did you move on then
We did,
to?
we did. It was we talked about her like personally what she wanted. So she and her husband had very different ideas on how they wanted to spend their leisure time, right? And it was
Okay.
you know, Karen was very almost resentful of how her husband wanted to spend time, right?
Mm,
And so we talked about, okay, like there has to be, if we're in partnership, there's compromise. So what are you willing to compromise? What aren't you willing to compromise? He liked doing these long drives in his fancy car. She hated doing the long drives in the fancy car because the seats were really uncomfortable.
oh,
Right. But she would do it and then feel resentful and be
right.
angry with him and herself the rest of the day. That's
Okay.
not the way that you want to live. And so
No.
what, you know, what would 80-year-old Karen have to say to 55-year-old Karen? And 80-year-old Karen would say, knock it off, tell him, I don't want to do this with you, but I'm willing to do this other thing. And if you want to go for the ride, that's totally cool, but it's not comfortable on my body. And so I need to say no. And I don't want you to feel bad about it. This is me standing up for what I need. Right. And
Good.
so
Yeah.
tapping into that future vision of yourself and that
Right.
wisest vision of
Exactly.
yourself that has the best advice possible for current you.
Interesting. And a compromise could be, was there a way to make the seats more comfortable
Right,
if
right.
that was
Was it
really the issue?
a
Yeah,
shorter drive?
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
you know, it goes back to we talked about self-care as selfish, and it's not. It's expressing your needs. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes other people can meet our needs.
Mm-hmm.
Many times we need to meet them ourselves. Right.
Yes.
And so it
Very
was
true.
kind of turning the mirror back on her and saying, you need to stand up for your needs, your desires, and you need to articulate, because if you don't articulate, you're setting the other person up to disappoint, which is very
Mm-hmm.
unfair. Very
Yeah.
unfair.
Plus the resentment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because now you're
Mhm.
resentful, they're resentful, that you're resentful. It's just, it creates this
Yeah.
cataclysmic power and angst.
Wow.
that doesn't need to be there.
No, exactly
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Good. So you're doing almost like therapy work too.
We don't call it that.
No, we don't. We
I think
don't, but
if I
yeah.
were to go back to school, it very much would be therapy. I'm trauma aware, but I'm not trauma informed. And so I don't work with big T traumas.
Right.
We all have little T traumas. That's what I help with. Right.
Yeah.
It's under like at the core of it, this doesn't sell, but at the core of it, it's making our nervous systems feel safe.
Yes.
Right. That's the work.
The amygdala. Yeah.
Yeah. And the brain, the
Yes.
body connection of being safe in your world, not just
Exactly.
physically safe, but mentally,
No.
emotionally. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. And
That's the core of the work. But that's not that it's like I make your nervous system feel safer. That doesn't really sell.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And people don't think that's what they need anyway. So
Exactly.
right.
No one walks around saying, I need my nervous system to feel safer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But that is the core of the work.
Yeah. I think that's the core of a lot of our work too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good. Because how do you move forward with this fantastic life you want if you're not feeling currently safe?
Right. Safe to express your needs. Yep. Safe to get your needs met. Yeah. And again, it's physical safety is just one component of
absolutely.
Of that.
Absolutely.
But again, it's, even if like a vision, if a person or a woman listening in doesn't have a vision of her 80-year-old self, mine is very clear, but I realize not everyone is like that. It's what advice does the wisest version of you have for you today?
Yes.
What advice would you, if your child came to you with whatever you're going on in your head, what advice would you have for them? How would you treat them? Would it be with love and nurturing and understanding and support? Or would you be like, oh, get your stuff together and get over it?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you might,
exactly.
But is that
stop being selfish.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that the most helpful? And then how do you turn that same compassion and kindness and nurturing unto yourself? That goes again to making that nervous system feel safe, that it can be, there's safety within ourselves, that we will treat ourselves with kindness, compassion, and respect. Uncovering how to do that, that's the magic and the key.
Exactly.
And it's different for everyone. It's different for everyone.
Yeah. Because all of our experiences are different.
Exactly.
And what makes us safe might be different for various people.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jen, I know you have a free gift for the listeners. So do you want to talk about it?
I would love to. So it has a long title. It's called A Perfectly Average Mediocre Day in Your Dream Life. And it's my personal riff on the ideal day exercise. If those listening in have ever heard of that, but when I did the ideal day exercise, I did it from this place of nothing was off limits, which was kind of fun.
Absolutely.
I had myself jetting to India for a massage and then Bali for some rice, right? Like I just had fun dreaming of it. So I really wanted to create a resource that was very practical, but again, led with desire. Like what does that dream life look like? A perfectly average, mediocre day, right? So often we get stuck in the monotony of our day to day. This is meant to help you kind of dream a little bit and think outside the box. And then again, like what is the gap and what are the small things we can do to fill that gap and move us closer? Maybe I can't jet off to India for lunch, but what can I do? I could go check out a local Indian restaurant that I've been wanting to try.
Right.
That gets me closer to the feeling that I want. Right. So that's what I have. It's a simple, fun workbook. Clients absolutely love it.
Good. I can't wait to download it.
Yeah.
So, well, wonderful. And for the listeners, all you need to do is click on the button below the video and it will take you right to Jen's free gift. Yeah. Jen, thank you so much for being here. This has been fun.
Oh, I've had a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And for the listeners, I just want to remind you to keep keep looking at your email for the next expert who will appear, who will be sharing her experience and her perspective on how to keep hope alive during the pandemic. So thanks for being here, and bye for now.
Bye.